Guys, I don't think my body knows how to absorb the sunlight anymore. I got like really sunburned yesterday. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was putting sunscreen on every 30 minutes and it still wasn't enough. My poor little body. So if I look like I'm in pain throughout this entire sermon, it's because I am. And then I'm gonna go lay down and put aloe on my body again and sleep. Yay! Welcome back! Welcome back, Lake Avenue Middle School. We have missed you. We hope these last 2 weeks of primarily nothingness from me and Josh has made you miss us, because we miss you. And we are so excited because today we get to launch a new series, and this series is called Gifted. So today is part 1 of, I forget how many, but it's going to be great. We're gonna have guest speakers for this sermon series. We're gonna have incredible people speaking into this idea of how do we identify and use our gifts for God's kingdom. And so today we're going to kind of start with the basics of what are my gifts? How do I identify my gifts? What does that mean? I've got you. We're going to cover that today. Before we jump into how to identify our gifts and how to use them for the kingdom, I have some very important announcements. So to start us off, this Wednesday, August 26th at 7 p.m., we are having a game night. We are just going to be doing games nonstop for a time period. I don't know. But there will be prizes involved, so join us. This is the end of our summer series because next Wednesday we are starting with our life group meet and greet, which dives into this next idea that life group registration is open, but it closes on the 31st, which is next Monday. So you still have like a week-ish, a little more than a week. So make sure to register. It's going to be amazing. We are so excited. We are doing blueprints. So we're going to be talking about how do we shape our lives to be blueprints of how to show God's love? How do we teach through our lives? It's going to be amazing. Leaders are incredible and you're going to want to meet them and spend all the time with them. It's going to be fantastic. Make sure to be signing up. Next, like I said, on September 2nd, we're having our life group meet and greet, which will be in the parking lot at Lake Avenue. If you're signing up, we will be sending you more information. If you want more information, email Josh or myself and we'd be happy to let you know. Go to lakeav.org/middle school in order to find more information about all these things. But other than that, let's dive into this new sermon series because I'm pretty stoked. All right, so I'm going to have you grab your Bibles, open up to Matthew 4. We're going to be reading verses 18 through 22. And it says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called to them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Let's pray. Gracious and holy God, I thank you for each one of the individuals who is watching this series. God, as we begin to think of the gifts you have given us within our personalities, within our abilities, God, I pray that it becomes more and more clear to each of us how to use those in order to share your love, to bring people to Christ and God, for your kingdom to come to earth. God, speak through me and may my words be a form of worship to you. Amen. Sick. So, like I said, this one is going to be all about how do we identify our gifts. And it starts off with this example that we see. So this is this beautiful part where Jesus has come from some pretty insane moments in his life now. He's been baptized. He's been tempted by the devil. He is now prepared to take on disciples. Disciples being people that he is teaching about his teachings. So he is now the teacher. So he is their rabbi, he is their spiritual advisor. And so it starts in point 1 by saying we all have gifts. So in verse 18, we get to meet 2 brothers. So this guy's name is Simon, but his nickname, he goes by Peter. So we have Peter and his brother Andrew in a boat. So for most of us, when we hear like fishing or going fishing, things like that, it's for most people hobbies. Like they do it every once in a while, if they do it at all, or if they eat fish, they buy it at the store. Well, someone has to catch that fish when you buy it at the store. And that's what these men did, is this was their source of income. This was their job. They were fishermen. So with that, they weren't just fishermen, they were really good at it. And the way I can tell you they were really good at it is because in this time, whatever your ancestors or your parents did as a profession, so for Andrew and for Peter, their dad and their dad's dad and their dad's dad's dad were fishermen. It was a generational thing. You didn't really have a say in what you did. So here they have multi-generations of fishermen in this lake. They know this lake inside and out. They know where the fish are. They know the best ways to catch them. They're just really good at fishing. But even though their families have been fishing forever, Peter and Andrew are picked by Jesus to use their gifts not to catch fish to put food on the table or to supply food for other families, but instead Jesus says, use those tools of knowing where you are. Use those tools of knowing how to anticipate a fish. Use those tools to fish for people. And that sounds kind of terrifying because in my head, I'm like, you don't fish for people. That's just bizarre. But what Jesus is saying is like, I need you to become disciples, to learn under me, to learn what I'm talking about, and then use your skills of knowing where you are and how the world around you operates in order to teach my message. Because you realize these people move, they're nomads. And so it's like, well, Jesus' group is nomads. So they're moving around constantly. They're hardly in the same place for a very long time. So you have to be good at adapting when you were a disciple of Jesus. You had to learn a culture of a new place you're in, a new town, a new region, a new country, and you have to know how to talk to these people. I mean, think about it. The difference between like going to Pasadena and then going to Chicago, those are two completely different vibes. One deals with sunshine and 100-degree weather regularly, and the other gets snowed in to where they can't leave their homes for a couple days at a time in the winter. And I'm like, oh, girl, I'm good. But they're still people. There's still people who crave salvation, who say they're missing something, but they don't know what. And Jesus is saying, we are going to learn and adapt your gifts to finding those people and sharing my story. So in point 2, we see, listen for where and when God calls you to use your gifts. So that is a mouthful, but it's so important because we see in verse 19 and 20, Peter and Andrew are out on the lake, right? So they're out there fishing, and they see a man on the shore calling them. And the terms "come follow me" is not just a rando statement. We have learned Jesus was very intentional about the way he spoke. He was very intentional about the words and the phrases he used to communicate to others. So in the Jewish tradition, when a rabbi who is a teacher, so like a pastor, said to someone, "come follow me," that comment was, I want to take you on as a student. I want you to learn everything that I know. It was an honor and it was a privilege. So you have these fishermen who could not stay and continue to learn in the Jewish schools. They had to go and learn how to fish. They had to go learn their trade. And so instead of being able to learn under a rabbi, like some of their more wealthy comrades in this area, they had to go fishing. So the fact that a rabbi is looking at them and saying, I choose you. You may be adults, even though normally a rabbi would call students when they were like 12. It's, you're adults, but I'm calling you, come follow me. This was a huge honor, and it was one of those moments where they had a choice. These men had a choice to hesitate, to wait it out and be like, could we get a little bit more information? Could you explain it a little bit better to us? And Jesus doesn't even have to do that. These men just see God is calling to them. Yahweh is asking them to take a leap of faith and trust that God is working. Because each of us will have a different experience or a different call in our lives. So, for example, we talk about this all the time, and by this I mean like my best friend Rachel. Rachel is so good with people. She is an amazing communicator. She is so sympathetic and empathetic. She is someone that if you need someone to talk to just listen, or if you need someone to help you get your mind off of something, she knows exactly what to do. I am not that person. I am the person that's like, oh, you're not doing okay. I don't know what to do with this. Ooh, I'm a little nervous. Can we just like talk? Do you want to sit? Do you want to take a nap? I'm all about taking naps. But that's not Rach. Rach is like, how do we address this moment? Because that's her gift. She is cool under pressure or under stressful situations. And she goes, I'm going to wait for God to let me know what we need to do about this, but you're not in this alone. So for her, that's her gift. My gift is talking. I can talk and 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 talk without getting exhausted. And you guys know that. I have to learn, and I've had to teach myself how to truly listen. And it's by watching people like Rachel who are so naturally good at it that for them, it just happens. I have to watch those people in order to learn how to listen, how to do better, how to be a better Christian, how to be a better friend, how to be a better follower of Christ. So that's why no two calls and requests from God are alike, because no two people are alike. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever showed you guys a picture of my two best friends, Liz and Rachel. We could be no different, like farther from difference. Rachel is about this tall. She is blonde. She is super funny. She's athletic. She's just good at basically everything. Then you have Liz, who's like a little bit shorter than me, but not by much. Again, blonde. She is the most, are you doing good? Is there anything I can do for you? Everything is about service. And then there's me, loud, talking, just kind of a lot. Brunette, big polar opposites. But we complement each other, and that's why these two girls are my best friends. They show me areas and different points of God's love that I need to learn to do better at. So now we get into part 3. And for me, this is the one that hits pretty close to home and can be a big reminder for me as to the fact that it may not always be easy, but God will always be with you. So in verse 21, we see and we meet a new set of brothers. So Jesus has now has Peter and Andrew walking alongside him as he's walking down the beach of this lake. And he looks over and he sees 2 or 3 men in a boat, more fishermen. So going from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. So the reason that one is harder for me is because if you were at camp, you heard a little bit. I went to Russia on a trip. So I was living in Lithuania. I was studying abroad for college, and I was in Lithuania for a little less than 6 months. And it was the first time I had left the continent of North America. It was the first time that I was significantly separated from my family. My family and I are very close. My older brother and I are only 3 years apart. My mom and my dad mean the world to me. And this was the first time that not only would distance be in between us, but time. There's a 10-hour time difference. So pretty much when I was waking up, getting ready to start my day, my mom and dad were clocking out of work and ending their day. So we had a sweet spot when we were either waking up or going to sleep where we could talk to one another. And it was hard for me. It wasn't an easy trip. Lithuania changed me, and God met me there, and it was life-changing for the better, but it wasn't easy. I knew that I needed to go to Lithuania. It was something that had built up until the acceptance letter came that I knew I needed to go. But I got very, very homesick shortly after getting there. I felt like it was pointless to be there. I felt like I made a mistake and didn't actually follow what God had called me to do. Instead, I was selfish, and now I'm having to pay the price, and that could not be further from the truth. So best friend Rach and I were sitting one day, and I'm telling her how much I missed my parents, how much I miss my brother, how much I miss life back home in Southern California. Because Lithuania is nothing like Southern California. It's its own beautiful culture that I was overwhelmed by. And I told Rach, I was like, I feel like God is gone, that I'm alone and that I have made a mistake. And she asked me pretty point blank, are you actually talking to God? Are you asking God if this is where you need to be and asking God what you can do while you're here? I wasn't going to be there forever. There was an end date. There was a time when I was going to be coming back to the United States. But she brought up a good point. I started praying. I started looking for opportunities. And I suddenly realized there were a lot of students at LCC, the college that I was at, who wanted to get to know American culture, who wanted to understand American Christianity because, spoiler alert, American Christianity is very different than Christians all over the world. We each kind of find moments in Jesus's life that we kind of latch onto. So I got to make friends. I got to explain what it meant to be a woman in leadership, because a lot of churches in other parts of the world, women aren't in leadership. So explaining that my call in life was to serve God through the church, not just as a disciple, but actually a pastor, I suddenly realized, and it dawned on me, if I want to preach, if I want to teach when I'm at home, everyone needs to be home, because everyone needs to know about Jesus. Once I kind of got over my homesickness, I started making friends, it started making more sense. I mourned when I came home, because now I had to relearn how to be an American again, because I was just engulfed in Lithuanian culture, and now I'm American again. But it made me realize that my call is so much bigger than just Pasadena, Glendora, Southern California, that God uses and is with us everywhere, because everyone needs the salvation of Jesus Christ. Your gifts aren't that tough to identify. And so in our final thoughts, I want you to remember, they aren't that hard to identify. There are things you're good at. There are things that you enjoy doing. The tough thing about identifying your gift is how to recognize when God is asking you to use those gifts. When God is asking you to trust that this is a part of a plan to bring salvation to the world, how do you use your gifts to teach others about the salvation through Jesus? So this week's challenge, I'm not asking you to go out and start like a conversion process and try to get everyone to accept Jesus, although that would be very admirable, and I think everyone should do that. But it's also a lifelong commitment, so don't get burned out too quickly. My challenge for you this week is I want you to identify your passions, the things you love to do, things that help others in some way, whatever it is that you go, I really enjoy. For a lot of you, video games. There's nothing wrong with video games. I actually had a student a couple of years ago talk someone through accepting Christ while playing Call of Duty. I know that sounds bizarre. It was a friend that he had met, and they used to play Xbox all the time together. And one day he called me and he said, Leah, a friend of mine is asking about Jesus and I don't know what to do. So I had the honor of calling my co-leader at the time, DJ, and we got to talk these students through what it meant to accept Christ. But if it wasn't for the obedience of Aaron sitting there going, I love video games, I love talking about Jesus, how do I make these things mesh, that student wouldn't have come to Christ. Now, he lived in Iowa, so I never met him. But at the same time, don't doubt that the things you love to do aren't able to bring salvation to others. So here's the thing. I don't want you to just write them down, because in the past we've had challenges where, write this down, figure it out. No, here's what I want you to do. Identify things you're passionate about. Identify things you like to do. Identify things you're good at. And I want you to either email Josh, email me, text, email your leaders and tell them, I think this is my gift. We would love to talk with you about this. We would love to help you figure this out, because here's the thing, your gifts may change, because no two people's gifts are the same. But the one thing that is the same always is God's request for us to love God's creation. So this is going to be a good series. It's going to be a series focusing on how do we pour out while Jesus is the one using us. So here's my gift to you. You are loved, you are heard, and you are needed. Love you. Toodles. Oh, sorry.